Hi guys, here's something we hear a lot. There's a lot of people out there that want to shoot a heavy arrow and they want to shoot it as a carbon. And the question becomes how to make a carbon arrow heavy. Now I'm going to show you what works for me. It's kind of a neat little trick. I've been doing this method now for about 15 years. I actually wrote an article for Traditional Bowhunter, it has to be about 10 years ago, explaining this in detail when I shot aluminum arrows as well too. But I'm going to show you what makes it work. Now this right here is my standard hunting arrow. It's a gold tip 35-55 shaft, and I will show you the components I use in it. They're basically laid out right here. It's a 135 grain broadhead. I have a 100 grain brass insert that goes into the shaft, and I have a 100 grain steel broadhead insert that actually fits and goes right into the broadhead. Then those screw right into the insert, which is mounted into my my standard gold tip 35-55 shaft. And then I got a knock on there, and I also, my fletching and just a cap wrap. Now this finished arrow, as you would do by putting those components together, is going to have a total weight of just about 600 grains is what you're going to actually get out of that. Now 600 grains is a good arrow, and like I said, it's a great weight for a good arrow out of most draw weight bows. I like a heavier arrow. I like arrows that are in the 750 range. Actually 740 seems to be where I end up landing all the time, and that seems to be what I've been shooting for pretty much a 740 grain arrow for the last 10 years. And I really like that out of my 63 pound longbow. There's a lot of benefits to it. I'm not going to get into all those details here. I'm going to just show you how you can make that components that add up to a 600 grain arrow and turn it into a 700 or 740 grain arrow. Now there are tubes that you can put inside the shaft. I don't like those tubes. They rattle, they make noise, they're stiff, they add spine to the shaft. I'm not really impressed with the tubes that people are putting in them. What I do instead is my secret weapon, and that is nylon rope, poly braided nylon rope. And the stuff that I use for this size shaft is just a straight up 316. I buy it by the 100 feet. And then what this is this rope. I take this stuff and I stuff it right down in the shaft. What I do is I mount my insert into the arrow, and then once I have that glued in, I pop the knock off, and I'll take this rope and I'll stuff it right down the shaft. And then and I cut the rope itself. I actually cut it about 2 or 3 inches longer than what the actual shaft is, because this rope is going to compress. It actually will smash together when it gets in there, and it'll end up being shorter after you shoot it a few times. So what I do is I take that rope, I stuff it into the shaft. I then take the shaft like this. I'll grab it right on a piece of board. I'll bang that down and just keep knocking that rope so it packs down into the end of it. Once I get it all stuffed in there, I put my knock back on. What it does for me is this rope that's cut for that, 2 or 3 inches longer than my shaft, this gives me 140 grains of extra weight, and it's flexible weight. It doesn't really add anything to the spine of the arrow, and by having, I have a lot of forward of center weight on my shaft already, so I'm real happy with that. Between a 135 grain head, 100 grain insert, and then a 100 grain arrow insert, I got, that gives me almost 350 grains on the front of my shaft. What this does is it gives weight to the entire shaft, kind of like an arrow tube does. It costs almost nothing to do your arrow, to get enough of this to do your arrows. A 100-foot bag of that will last for a very long time, when you're building them. So, but it's flexible too. It's not rigid like a tube. It doesn't add any spine. It doesn't rattle around. It doesn't make any noise. Like I said, I've been shooting them for many, many, many years, and I've never noticed any flight differences between the arrows that I make. If you cut all these ropes the same length, once you figure out what one's going to work for you to give the weight you want and going to stuff your shaft full, this system works absolutely incredible. But those components, the rope, and the components that are needed to build the arrow and the shaft, that's what gives me a 740 grain carbon arrow that I can use out of my longbow, and I love it. So if you're looking for ways to try and customize your weight, now you can use different kinds. If you use a straight up polypropylene rope, a braided poly rope or a twisted poly rope, it's lighter than nylon, and it's going to give you less weight, probably about half the weight of what this is going to be. Nylon rope, like I said, for me, I use a 27.5 inch arrow or 27.5 inch shaft. Out of that shaft, if I cut that rope 2 or 3 inches longer than what the actual shaft is. When I pack it down, it'll keep compressing and it'll end up in there, and it makes it nice and quiet in there. And when I do that, I can take a 600 grain arrow that you would build without the rope, add the rope, and make it a 740 grain arrow. So there's a tip for you if you're looking for ways to get a heavy carbon arrow. Stuffing it with rope is definitely the best option I have found so far. So just a tip for you. I thought I'd get this tip out there for you and show you, because there's so many people that wonder how to make a heavy carbon arrow. That's pretty much the way that I found it works best. And again, I've been using it as tried and true. I got 10 years of shooting them stuffed with arrow shaft stuffed with rope, and I've yet to find anything that works better. So thanks for listening and watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.